Shabbat Shalom. This coming Shabbat, we read the Torah portion of Tzav, and we also celebrate Shabbat Hagadol, the Shabbat that immediately precedes the holiday of Passover. We at Bethel will be celebrating the Bat Mitzvah of Riley Jelen, and so we wish Riley and the entire Jelen family a Mazel Tov. This Shabbat, Shabbat Hagadol, holds a very important place in the Jewish community's heart. First of all, I probably don't need to remind you that historically this was one of 3 times that the rabbi actually gave a real sermon in the synagogue or to the community in our more ancient tradition. I know what you're thinking. 3 times the whole year. What else did the rabbi do? I have no idea. But that being said, this is really a very important Shabbat in our people's calendar. We could make the case that it holds this great place of import because it is the Shabbat that heralds the coming of Passover. Regardless of how we celebrate Passover, Passover is the most celebrated of all of the Jewish holidays. But I think there's something more to the holiday. And I think what really to this Shabbat, and I think what really exists in this Shabbat goes back to the first Shabbat Hagadol, which would have been celebrated by the children of Israel in Egypt not long before they were leaving to go to the Promised Land. I can just imagine it in my mind's eye. This crazy day where they were working feverishly to get themselves ready to go, and here it comes Shabbat, and all of a sudden, in a moment in their lives when the last thing they needed was to rest and to stop doing things, they did that. It's an incredibly important statement. Sometimes we're tempted to think that Shabbat just doesn't fit into our lives because there's too much going on for us to take time to rest. But I think one of the most important lessons of Shabbat Hagadol is for us to reverse that. It's not a question of how Shabbat fits into our lives, but how our lives fit into Shabbat. We need Shabbat from a religious, from a spiritual, from a physical, and from an emotional perspective. So as we look at the ancient Jews and the way they celebrated this important Shabbat, it's a reminder for us to fit Shabbat into our lives. Because to not do so would not only be untenable, but would not be in keeping with what we are tasked with doing at the Passover Seder, to imagine ourselves as though we too left from Egypt. Shabbat Shalom.